y'all. I'm Jessica.
And I'm Derek.
And we are here to talk about our fertility journey. So if you click this video, you are interested in learning a little bit about our specifically secondary infertility journey. And secondary infertility is defined as the inability to become pregnant or carry a pregnancy to term after previously giving birth to one or more biological children without medical assistance. So since we're talking about fertility, I thought it would be appropriate to give a little bit about our ages, because I know that that's important or a big part of the topic when you talk about fertility. So I'm currently 35 years old.
I'm 36. I'm a 88 baby, so in July I'll be 37 this year.
Yes, the last of the greatest, 88, 89. We got pregnant with our first child when I was 30, but I did not deliver her until I was 31. So we got married when I was 25. So we were married for about 5 years.
I was 27 at the time.
You were 27 when we got married?
It was right after my birthday, so I would have been 27.
Okay, so you were 27, I was 25. So we were married about 5 years before we conceived our first child. And we have been on this rearing journey ever since. So before we hop into the infertility part, let's talk about the fertility part. So baby number one. Baby number one. Shall I tell the truth about what happened? Or do you want to concoct your story? Go ahead. Okay, so my husband and I have been together since about high school, sophomore year of college. And so we've been together a long time, got married, and we were in business school, married in business school. I was at Cornell, you're at the University of Michigan, and we were just living our MBA life. So if you are MBA out there, you know what that life is, doing the wine tours and the traveling. And then pandemic hit, so we were in business school during the pandemic, so we were trying to still have somewhat of a experience with your friends in smaller groups while still experiencing the MBA. And unexpectedly, we got pregnant.
Yeah.
We were starting to talk about getting pregnant.
Yeah, but that was for like a post-graduation.
Correct.
As we had like we were at that point we were already like planning on like housing and having a home after graduation. Right. So it wasn't like a monumental shift from the plan, but it was probably a year sooner than maybe what we thought.
Exactly. So I remember being in my internship in tech. So I was actually interning at Google. And when you're trying to convert full time, so when you're MBA, you're interning during the summer, you're trying to get the company to give you a full time offer before you go back to school for your second year. Found out we were pregnant. I'm like, oh my God. Like all the thoughts are running through my head because I'm in school full time. I'm not working. I have 2 more semesters to do out of state. I'm in New York. My husband is in Michigan. We're not even living in the same place right now. And I'm still trying to make the most of this MBA experience. We paid a lot of money to be here. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm still having the MBA experience that I want to have. So there's that going on in my mind. But then also what's going on in my mind is like, oh shoot, am I ready? Like I'm here now. Like there's no getting out of it besides through labor and delivery, right? So I'm like, oh my gosh, like what? Like I don't even know. So we were kind of talking about it. And things kind of settled down. We got on the same page, of course, and the excitement happened. I ended up staying on campus that fall that I returned to campus after the internship. And then I came back to Michigan for my last semester. And now the beautiful thing about this, and this is going back to our faith, is God always works things out. Because I remember talking to some of the administrators at my school, and they were saying like, had it not been the pandemic, I would have had to have been there in person to complete my coursework. But because of the pandemic, things were moving virtual. I was able to come back to Michigan, finish out my classes, graduate. I did graduate, and I did go back to New York for graduation after having my daughter. But that would have been possible if we weren't in the pandemic. So God worked that whole thing out. What were some of your thoughts like going through that? Because at this point you had graduated. You had just graduated.
Yeah, and it was working at that point in time. It was intense. The first child, everything is like super documented, super. Right. Oh my goodness, I need to learn. I had never changed a diaper before in my life, and so it was like that. I know it sounds silly, but it was something that I really thought of. Like I'm supposed to care for this child. We were trying to get educated on actual child care and things like that. So it was a journey, but looking back on it, it was positive. So
our first child was very easy baby. We were so in love with her, of course. We knew that we wanted to have more, as we said earlier. If we had one, we were going to have more than one. And so pretty quickly, we decided to try for baby number 2. So I remember that being like November-ish. So our first was like March-ish, so by November-ish.
We were already thinking about, hey, let's go ahead and start the planning. They'll be very close in age. They'll be best friends. Right. And let's go ahead and try for the second. And fortunately, we were, I think on the first month in which we started to try, we were able to conceive our second.
One hit wonder. We tried one month and we got pregnant in that month. And again, all is well. We think we're having this normal, natural journey that everybody talks about, that you see on social media. If you want to have a kid, you just have one, right? And so that's what it was. And we, just rode the waves with that. We're excited for baby number 2. We didn't wait to tell family. Why would we wait? We've had these wonderful experiences with having children.
And the second pregnancy was easier.
It was.
There's a lot less anxiety from us as parents because we kind of knew what to expect, and delivery was easier. So for a little while, until her personality started to bubble up. Our youngest. It was pretty easy. No, I'm joking. I love my babies. But we did the energy expenditure needed for 2 babies is a lot more
Right.
than for one. But the second journey was so easy, and so we were like, yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
And yeah, so I mean, and also at this time with the chaos, I don't remember at what point you were still in consulting, like typical consulting. Those are crazy work hours too. So when we were thinking about our family and stuff like that, we're also thinking about our jobs and our ability to have the capacity for these kids.
Yeah, shortly after we were maybe a few months into the pregnancy with baby 2, that we decided that it was probably a good time to get into something that didn't require me to be on the
Right.
road 4 days out of the week.
Right.
And so that's when I transitioned jobs from external consulting to internal consulting. So
Right.
so I could just be home, every day as opposed to on the road.
Exactly. And so we had a beautiful start to our journey of having children. But as you see from the title of this video, it didn't end, or the entire journey was not as blissful, is how I would say it. I do also have some videos of the birth stories of our 2 children, so I'll link those below as well. I'll link below the fertility awareness method video that I have below, but we don't want the video to be too long, so we're going to slice this up, and we're going to talk a little bit about going through actual secondary infertility. So after having our second child, we had our first 2 back-to-back. They're like 14 months apart. 14 months apart. So although they're very close and we love the bond they had, I think with how much that was in my body, because I also exclusively pumped. So I didn't breastfeed right on the boob, but I pumped milk for both my daughters for about 6 to 7 months each. So you got to imagine being pregnant for 9 months, then pumping for 6 to 9 months, and then I didn't let my body even recover before I was pregnant right again with the second one. So at that point, after having the second one, we knew that if we wanted more, that we wanted to space it out a little bit. So miscarriage number 1. Miscarriage number 1 happened almost a year after having our second child. This time we were not planning. We weren't trying to get pregnant. I just ended up pregnant.
But it is important that we, so post children, we're no longer tracking. We're no longer we're not trying to avoid.
Okay, let me say it like this. So in the video that I linked below about the fertility awareness method, you have to be on top of tracking your temperatures, tracking your cervical mucus. Once we started having kids, I wasn't doing that. Now, were we like, oh, we are just open to having a bunch of kids? No, we were still like, okay, we don't want to have kids. And I was kind of like...
But we weren't, it's just like we weren't proactively avoiding it either, though.
We weren't? Oh, okay.
We weren't.
Okay. That's news to me. Maybe I didn't know.
It was just like, Jesus, take the wheel. What happened?
Oh, okay. That's not what was going on in my mind. What was going on in my mind was I'm not a fan of hormonal birth control. In general, I'm kind of skeptical of just regular pharmaceutical drugs. I will take drugs if I need to, but I try not to if I don't have to. And the fertility awareness method worked for us. It's just when we started having kids, my sleep is all off. You know, you're up and down with kids throughout the night. And with doing the fertility awareness method, you have to be very specific about taking your temperature before you get out of bed and all that kind of stuff. And so I was kind of like more so just watching my cervical mucus, and I record everything in my apps. I know basically my apps have had so much data from all those years of me tracking the fertility awareness method that it was pretty precise within 1 to 3 days of accuracy of when my cycle would start. And so I had so many years of data. I kind of knew my body a little bit more. I felt comfortable still avoiding pregnancy without using hormonal birth control. I was avoiding, like I didn't know, this is new, so y'all, you heard it first here, okay? But I was avoiding, so much so when we got pregnant. I specifically remember when we got pregnant about a year after my second daughter came. I remember having a conversation with one of my girlfriends. Obviously, I'm excited. Anytime that the Lord blesses us with another child, it's a blessing. But I remember having a conversation with her and being like, I cannot be pregnant every year. Because basically up until that point, I was pregnant every year. 31, 32, we on 33, I'm pregnant, okay? And, you know, I'm pumping and I'm working, you know, we're working high stress jobs. And I just remember telling her, like, I cannot be pregnant every year. And I remember when I told you, and I don't remember at what, it was something chaotic going on because I was sitting in the loft. I told you, and you literally just laughed. You know that, like, why wouldn't we have a baby on top of all of this?
Sure, why not?
Why not? He, like, laughed himself to the next room. Like, I remember him just laughing so hard. But again, we've had wonderful experiences. You know, we were going to figure it out. We weren't expecting it, but we're here now. I remember we took the kids to Ohio. We did a family trip. Had a great time. We told family. We've always told family right up front. You know, we've never, why wouldn't we tell our family? And shortly after coming back from that Ohio trip, I started to bleed. I had never done that before. So with my eldest daughter, I spotted a little bit, but this was like noticeably more than that. And I was like, okay. So at that point, I'm calling my medical team, like, hey, you know, they have a triage line. Hey, we're pregnant, I'm spotting. They're asking me questions like, are you feeling a full pad of blood within, you know, they're asking me, I don't remember the exact parameters, but it was like, are you feeling the full pad of blood within an hour or something like that? And at the time, I wasn't. It was still spotting. So for me, they were still like, maybe this is like heavier than my first kid with the spotting, but still okay. And then as it progressed, it became very clear that I'm losing this pregnancy. And before I realized I was losing pregnancy, I remember like talking to my mom and just, you know, talking to family, and they're like, oh, well, we don't know yet. You know, everybody's like, you know, just kind of relax. And once it became obvious, like, this is too much blood to sustain this pregnancy, it started to feel like a very heavy, crampy period. I was shocked. I was shocked. It was almost like being stunned. Like, what? Never have I ever. Like, we had never been here before. What? You know? There was a little bit of embarrassment because we had talked to our family about it. But just shocked. I don't know. What were you feeling?
I was more so concerned about your health.
Yeah.
And making sure you're okay. I didn't even like process it right away. It was like, obviously it's a disappointment and a hurt, but I was just like, okay, I just want to make sure physically and emotionally,
right,
you know, that you were supported and where you need to be.
Yeah.
Because that's tough. And obviously you're both parents, but
right,
you know, one actually has to deal with the physical consequences, right, or the physical process. And so like just making sure that you were, one, like, is she gonna be okay, and then two, emotionally, is she gonna be okay?
Yeah. I just it's kind of blurry, but at this point we have a 1-year-old, we have a 2-year-old, and we just lost a baby. So I do remember you like Supermaning in and just like taking care of everything. I remember being in my bed a lot. I mean, obviously I worked, so I couldn't like, you know, for weeks at end, but I remember not wanting to get out the bed. I remember like, oh my God, you know, being ashamed, not really want to, you know, follow up with it. Like just all of the emotions, but still kind of like shocked that this happened to us.
I just remember being like, for the way I just handled it was just putting more focus and effort into our 2 daughters.
Right.
They're 1 and 2, right? So they're not like self-sufficient
no,
anyway.
at all.
So it was just like, I'm, you know, hurt and processing my feelings, but they need their, you know, their parents right now to be there for their care. So I just channeled it into, you know, trying to focus into the kids.
Yeah. And I remember us trying to check in with each other too, but I don't feel like we had words, like language to like talk about, like trying to check in with each other. You got your feelings, I got my feelings, but we're not really sure how to meet each other. Like, how do you deal with something like this? Like, how do you, I don't know. And so, yeah, I mean, life was still lifing. I mean, we still had a house to operate, jobs to go to, and 2 toddlers at the age of 2 and younger. So also that weighed into, like, I felt like how much time I actually had to deal with what was happening. But ultimately, I feel like I thought, like, okay, maybe this is a fluke. Maybe, you know, I put my body through a lot. I just had 2 kids back to back pumping. Maybe my body's like, girl, we just ain't got no nutrients for that. Like, I don't know. But after a while, I was able to kind of get to that resolve. That's kind of where I landed. Where did you land after that first one before we got into the second one?
That's the same. It was just like I said, it's just focusing on, like, kind of like, can't look back, gotta look forward, take care of our 2 daughters now.
Yep. And so then at this point, I'm 33, and a lot of with fertility, and I don't know if this is kind of just, you know, social media or just my perception, but I feel like a lot of times there's this age, right? It's like when a woman becomes 35, right? When a woman becomes 35, you know, all, you know, what breaks out. And so after that miscarriage, I remember us having frank conversations about, do we want to have more kids, right? I'm 33, I'm gonna be 35, like there could be challenges after that age. And although in my family, my mother, my sister, like I have like family who have had, my grandmother, like who have had children at the age of 40, right? So I've seen it done, and they've had happy, healthy children, no issues. We were just like, hey, we want our children to be close together in age. We know this 35 age is coming up. Do we want to like really start considering, are we done? And so I remember like about 6 months after that first miscarriage, us saying like, now being on the same page of saying we're not going to avoid it. That's where I remember us agreeing that we were not going to avoid pregnancy. So which meant that we were going to try. Like during some of the times that I know that I'm fertile, we would, you know, try. And unlike the second pregnancy where we tried the first month and got pregnant, nothing happened. Didn't get pregnant for like maybe about 3 months. So 3 months of just us not preventing it, but still nothing happening. At that point, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like, you know, you grow up and your parents scare you to death that if you look at a boy a certain way, you're going to get pregnant. And now I'm more than looking at a boy and I'm not getting pregnant. Like, what's up? Like, what's going on? Is something wrong? Like, something wrong with my body? I don't know. Were you just like, oh, it's whatever?
No, I just thought it's part of the process.
Okay.
So I wasn't concerned. Again, other than just making sure, checking on your mental, but I wasn't concerned.
Okay. But we did end up pregnant again about, I don't know, call it like 9 months after the first miscarriage. And now at that point, I'm cautiously excited because I've gone through 1 miscarriage. We didn't get pregnant right away when we were kind of not preventing it. So I wanted to be excited, but I wanted to be cautious. And at this point, I really was kind of like, let's just kind of keep this with us. You know what I mean? But our first 3 pregnancies was very much like, oh, we pregnant, y'all. You know, everybody get excited. And now some of that joy had been kind of, for me, had been kind of sucked out of it because I'm like, I don't know if this pregnancy is going to go the full mile. And I remember us sitting and having like lunch or something at this Indian restaurant. And we were again starting to plan, you know, okay, we have another kid on the way, what we're going to do, etc. And shortly after that, I start bleeding again. And I go through the process again. At this point, our family and friends knew about the first miscarriage because we had told them thinking we were gonna, have this baby. The second time, us trying and then getting pregnant and then losing the second child, our family and friends didn't know about. So it was like it was just us, kind of going through that, processing that, and trying to figure out like how to navigate it. Honestly.
Yeah.
I think at that time, for me, it was a gradual incline, right? First miscarriage, okay, fluke. I did just put a lot on my body. Second one, it was kind of like the more spontaneous miscarriages, the more like the anxiety, the thoughts, the like, am I going to be able to do this? Can we have more children? It started to ramp up. It was like those thoughts. My thoughts were spinning. It was like, okay, now we've kind of decided that we want to have a kid, because at first we were unsure. So that's why we started with we're not going to prevent it. Whatever, God's will be done. Going back to how our beliefs kind of fuel our decision making, because by saying, we're not going to prevent it, we were sort of saying, okay, God, like, whatever you have for us, you know what I mean? And when that pregnancy didn't go through, it was rough. But also at this point, where are we at? We're at I'm 34 at this point, which means I have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old, and life is still going on. Like, I still have to be a mom. I'm still an employee. I'm still a wife. I'm still, all these different things. And so I don't feel like at that time I really processed. It was kind of like we just had to keep going. Mm-hmm. Now, so now we're there. Okay, so I would say about maybe three months after that second miscarriage, we were pregnant again. We were pregnant again. So this would be the 5th time. Yes, it's the 5th time I'm pregnant. I'm on the 3rd miscarriage, soon to be miscarriage. This particular time, we were out of town on a trip with some family. And I got a nudge, hear the Holy Spirit, and he was kind of like, we were on the strip having fun.
It was on my birthday.
Yeah, around his birthday, Father's Day, the whole thing.
Oh, it was Father's Day? It was Father's Day. No, birthday, Father's Day.
And we were, hanging out, having fun, having the time of our life. And Holy Spirit is like nudging me, like, take a pregnancy test. And so I go to this random drugstore on this strip out of town, get this pregnancy test. I go into some public bathroom, and I use the restroom on this stick, and I'm pregnant. At this point, I'm like mortified from a sense of like, I want another child, but I've had 2 miscarriages. Like, now I'm just full blown, like, this, I don't even know if this is gonna work. Like, I don't even know if this is gonna fully, go to the end. I'm scared. I'm like, all of this like emotion from 2 other spontaneous miscarriages are here. And I remember we were talking about it when we got back to the Airbnb or cabin or whatever. And we were talking about sharing it with family. And I was just like, absolutely not. Like, because at that point, I was not aware of anyone around me who had a similar experience. All the people around me, when they wanted kids, they had them, as far as what I saw. You get what I'm saying? And so this became a very personal, intimate thing for me, that I was like, they can't identify, they can't identify, they can't empathize with what I'm going through. I mean, obviously people will try to comfort you, but at that particular time, I just felt so much shame. I felt discouraged. I felt disappointed. Like, I felt so many emotions of like, I don't want to hear from somebody who's never gone through this about this. You get what I'm saying? Like, if you're going to talk to me, like, you need to have had a couple miscarriages under your belt. You know what I mean?
And this one in particular, because we were the furthest along at the point that this one occurred, that we had been. Yeah. And so the first one, you can always kind of like, chances, there's always that percentage chance. Second one, you can still sort of, hey, that's that, all right, you can still rationalize it off. The third time, that's when, you're like, you're really concerned for Jessica. I'm really concerned for, okay, what's going on? And you get to a point where you're like, just for that emotional toll, like, I'm like, that's when I was just like, look, I am perfectly happy, content with my 2 perfect daughters.
Because it's a lot.
Like, I don't know
going through this emotion.
Like, I don't want to keep putting us through the situation now at this point, because now 3rd time consecutively, you start to be like concerned, is there something like medical going on? Is there like, now there must be some reason, right? Of course.
Right, like, the first time, like, fluke, by 3, you're like, okay, girl, like, something's going on. So shortly after we got back home from that trip is when I started bleeding again. Miscarriage number 3, 5th pregnancy, 3rd miscarriage, 3rd spontaneous miscarriage. And that one was hellish. Like, I have no other way to say it. And the reason why I say that is because the first 2 miscarriages, my body naturally eliminated the pregnancy. I never had to like take anything or be medically, like, any procedures done on me to eliminate the pregnancy. My body just got rid of the pregnancy. This time, my body sort of held on. It was like the whole summer. It was like weeks and weeks of just like on and off spotting, We were checking in with our medical staff. I was getting ultrasounds. They were checking my ACG levels. It got to a point where my ACG levels were declining, so they were like, "You are going to miscarry." And they asked me had I needed any assistance before with any of the miscarriages. I said no. My body, naturally, eliminated the pregnancies, and they were like, "Okay, your body will probably do that again." But we were still holding on that, maybe this will work. So we got the ultrasound at the hospital, and there was no heartbeat. There was no heartbeat. And I remember at the hospital, it was like I don't know if I was numb. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I just remember, when we got home, and I just like hugged Derek, and I was just like, I had never hurt in my chest like that. Like, sorry, I had never hurt in my chest like that. Like, my chest felt like it was tight, and woo, the feelings are coming back, y'all. And we just like hugged, and I was just like, I was crying, but I just could not breathe. Like, I was having a panic attack. I was having a panic attack. Also over this time, so over, I would say like 2 to 3 months the summer of that year, I was spotting the whole time, but we had all these trips planned. So we had just gotten back from one family trip, and we were on our way to another family trip. Every time I go to the bathroom, I'm seeing blood, so I'm not done yet over weeks. You know what I mean? So it was almost like I couldn't move completely forward because my body wasn't done with this yet. And, I'm going back and forth with my medical team. Like, is this natural? Is this normal? At this point, I've been bleeding for X amount of time. Like, do I need to be checked or anything like that? And they were like, when you get back from one of the trips, they were like, if you haven't, eliminated it, then we can give you something to help. I never ended up taking whatever it was. I don't remember. I think it was like a pill or something that I could come to the office for. But it just would not leave. It was just like, it would not leave. At some point, I don't remember when we started doing the testing for our fertility, because now at this point, we're like, is something wrong with us? Like doing sperm testing. I was doing tests with my doctor when we got back. Genetic testing. I did, and I will not try to repeat the name of this procedure. Because, whenever they do a procedure on you, they ask you what procedure you're getting to make sure and confirm that you know what you're getting. And it was some kind of procedure where they put like a scope inside my uterus just to make sure my uterus looked normal. I mean, we were doing all this testing, and it was like, everything was coming back normal. Mm-hmm. Everything was coming back normal. Now that's good, right? You think to yourself like, great, like nothing's wrong. But then you think to yourself like, dang, ain't nothing wrong? Like, we've had 3 spontaneous miscarriages. What's up? So for me, after that, that's when I remember having panic attacks. Like, that was the first time, and we've been together a long time, so we know each other obviously very well. That's the first time in my life where randomly panic attack, chest tightening, can't breathe, palms are sweaty, like full on panic attacks started happening for me. At that particular time, I think what was going through my head was like, why is this happening to us? Like, what is going on? Like, we're good people. I think we're good. Like, I'm not saying we're the best people, but I mean, we decent, and we desire more children. Why can't we have more children? What was that like for you? Because you were helping me through those panic attacks. Like, I remember one time, like, him literally having to, like, open up a window to try to give me fresh air so I could breathe.
Yeah, it was just on, I don't know, you go into support mode, and it was the entire summer. It was a long time. And you still got the hormonal changes happening still. Yeah. And so it was I don't know, I kind of try to block it out, PTSD, but you're just into crisis management mode.
Period. And we got kids.
You still got kids.
And you still got kids, and I still got a job to report to, and I still am trying to manage a house, and I'm feeling this like complete attack on my soul. Like, it was deep in my chest. But there is some positive to this. I know we just went through the tears and everything, and that was a very emotional, moment that we just recapped, and I may not have said things the most eloquently because the emotions rushed back, but I will say that it is not the end of our story. Like we said at the first video, we are pregnant for the 6th time, and we are into our 2nd trimester, and I've already have gotten a lot of peace, like, from God about this particular one, that this one is gonna come to pass and into full fruition. And just for transparency, with the 3 miscarriages, we never got this far. With each one, there were like 7 weeks, like that 6-7 week time frame. And I remember with the pregnancy that I'm in right now, when we got past that week, it was like, for me, I was like, when I looked at the app and I was like, I'm past week 7. It was like
you really can't take in or appreciate or breathe. You really can't breathe until you're like, are we past that first trimester? And every time we go into the doctor's office and everything's looking great and you want to get happy, but you're just like,
I need confirmation. I need receipts. So we're going to go into how this secondary infertility journey completely turned around, what happened, what we did, where we are now, and to just give some kind of encouragement that there is and can be, you know, a beautiful sunshine at the end of that rainbow. That even though you go through, you know, you might go through some seasons like this that feel like, you know, all hell is breaking loose, that that's not the end. It doesn't have to be the end. We're gonna cut it here because we don't want to make these videos too long. And when we come back, we're gonna talk about being on the other side of secondary infertility and now being pregnant with a happy, healthy child, having a happy, healthy mama after having a season of secondary infertility.